Now, once John Garang passed away in the helicopter crash, his deputy, known as Salva Kiir, became the new vice president of Sudan. He was a quiet Dinka man who always wore a cowboy hat. Now, at the same time, while everybody's talking about North and South, the people in the western part of Sudan, in a place known as Darfur, they felt like they were also being neglected. Everybody was only focusing on these two, and these guys felt like they were getting left behind. And so they came up with what is known as the Sudan Liberation Army, and they united with what is known as the Justice and Equality Movement, and these guys attacked Khartoum. They were not playing, please. They attacked Khartoum. But let me tell you now, the government at Khartoum, instead of firing back at the rebels, they hired a militia group known as the Janjaweed, translated as evil men on horsebacks, and they attacked Darfur and killed over 300,000 people. 2.5 million people were displaced into Chad and neighboring regions. Villages were burned. Women were raped left, right, and center. Children were recruited into the military. And the US called it an ongoing genocide. This was the first time a war was termed as a genocide when it was still ongoing. Anyways, between 2009 and 2010, the international ICC issued a warrant for Omar al-Bashir. Remember, he was the president at the time, and he's the one who had hired these Janjaweed guys to go and kill people in Darfur. So they issued a warrant for him. And let me tell you, Bashir, he ignored the warrant. He continued ruling Sudan for 10 years, dodging countries where he knew that he would get arrested. But let me tell you, nothing lasts forever, because January 2011 came and South Sudan, 99% of South Sudanese people voted to leave Sudan and have their own country. And on 9th July 2011, South Sudan became the youngest country in the world. Now, upon independence, there was some renewed hope in South Sudan, because their president, Salva Kiir, was from the Dinka ethnic group. And his deputy, Riek Machar, was from the Noor, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he was from the Noor ethnic group. And these guys had even fought together under John Garang when he led the Sudan People's Liberation Front. However, right now, these guys apparently had long history of detest for each other. And in July of 2013, President Salva Kiir was like, you guy, I don't need you. He dismissed his deputy and his cabinet. He told them, I don't need your services. And in December of 2013, fighting broke out in Juba between the presidential guards. Oh my Lord. Obviously, some people were killed, those who were on the streets and all that. And in 2015, a deal was signed to bring back Machar into the government. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this guy's name right. However, this guy came back into the government, and again conflict broke out, and he had to escape Juba on foot, running into the bushes. The conflict continued up to 2018. 400,000 people were killed in South Sudan, and over 4 million people were displaced. In 2018, they signed another revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, and this guy Machar was reinstalled as the vice president of South Sudan, and Salva Kiir as the president. But South Sudan's economy remains traumatized and slow. Now back to the northern part. Now in Sudan, now I'm talking about the northern Sudan, which remained as Sudan. The president was still Omar Bashir. This is the guy that had sent the Janjaweed guys in Darfur to kill people in 2003. And between 2009 and 2010, the ICC had put out warrants for him. And at the same time, this guy had been in power for over 30 years. The Sudanese guys are like, hell nah. Apparently, the price of bread had gone up, and so protests broke out. And eventually, Omar Bashir was overthrown by a military coup. Now, this military coup in April of 2019 was made up of two groups. The Sudanese Armed Forces, which is like the national, the military of Sudan. At the same time, the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces. Now, do you guys remember the Janjaweed guys who killed people in Darfur? Apparently, they were just rebranded into the RSF. And these guys even had better weapons, better what? Because they were being funded by the United Arab Emirates. Hallelujah, Father Lord. So, the Sudan Armed Forces were being led by General Abed Fattah, and the Rapid Support Forces were being led by General Mohammed Hamadat. Most people call him Hamedit, just that. And he's the one who heads these guys, the RSF. Who are the former what? Janjaweed guys. I don't know why I keep calling them Janjamen. So, the current civil war happening in Sudan broke out after they had overthrown Omar Bashir. They introduced a civilian prime minister. They removed the civilian prime minister. The military forces wanted to remain in control, but the RSF wanted to be assimilated into the Sudan Armed Forces. And then conflict broke out. These RSF guys went to Darfur and they are stationed at Darfur, while the Sudan Armed Forces went to Sudan Port, which is at the Red Sea, and the conflict is still ongoing. Khartoum right now is a ghost town because they have been fighting since 2019 when they overthrew Darfur up to date. Millions of people have been displaced. Over 150,000 people have been killed in now what is known as the worst humanitarian crisis in today's world. Foreign people have also gotten involved, with Ethiopia and UAE supporting the RSF, while Egypt and others are supporting the SAF. Russia, Iran, and Turkey have also taken sides, but up to date, millions of people continue to suffer in Sudan. Women are getting raped, families are getting displaced, and the war is still ongoing. The southern part, which is South Sudan, is a bit more stable, but the economy is also quite slow. And they talk about tensions that anytime between the Dinka leader and the Nur deputy. So guys, that's the story of Sudan. We all need to be informed about what's going on because it affects you and I. And I hope we learn to appreciate the peace we have in our different countries, because some people have never known that.